Hello, everybody, and welcome to Your Anxiety Toolkit. My name is Kimberly Quinlan. Hello, I am an anxiety specialist. I'm licensed in the state of California, and you're listening to Your Anxiety Toolkit. This is where you are going to learn exactly how to manage and overcome anxiety and depression using the same science-based, compassion-focused strategies and tools that I use with my one-on-one clients. Today, we're tackling a tough but important topic: how to stop the downward spiral of depression before it takes over. I'll never forget a time early in my career when I worked with a client who described depression as sinking in quicksand. They felt like every negative thought and every decision to avoid something they used to enjoy just pulled them deeper and deeper into that dark, heavy feeling. What really struck me was the way they described hopelessness. And I'm sure you understand, they felt completely powerless to get out of this cycle. And what struck with me and really sat with me, and I know many of you can relate, is that exact feeling. But here's the thing. Even when it feels like you're being pulled down, there are ways to stop the downward spiral of depression. And today, I'm going to walk you through specific strategies that reduce depressive rumination and also reduce self-criticism. So let's dive into this. One way we can understand depression is by thinking of it as a cycle. Not as just one symptom or a feeling, because depression is usually a series of events that feed off of each other, keeping you trapped. For example, feeling sad or unmotivated can then lead to avoiding responsibilities or withdrawing from activities, which then makes you feel guilty or more hopeless. But as you know, negative self-critical thoughts also make us fall into this deep depression and further down that downward spiral. Thoughts like, I'm a failure, or I'll never get better, or I'm a burden to everyone I know, feed into this cycle and make you feel even more ineffective and unmotivated. Each behavior or thought can spiral into another, worsening your depression. But the good news is that we can intervene at any part of this cycle to start reversing it. By recognizing where we are in the cycle, we can then choose specific strategies to disrupt that downward pull and regain some control. Now, simply put, depression often starts as a small shift. Maybe it's a feeling of being less motivated. Maybe you're more tired or less interested in things that would usually bring you joy. And from there, we start withdrawing from activities, maybe skipping social interactions, and avoiding responsibilities. The less we do, the more hopeless and ineffective we feel, which worsens the depression and deepens that spiral. It really can get us stuck. And my goal for the rest of this episode is to give you some tools so that you can interrupt the cycle at different points and begin to reverse it. Okay, so let's do a deep dive into the practical tools, ones that you can actually use to help you manage the depressive spiral and reduce depressive rumination. So when depression hits, one of the hardest parts of the downward spiral is to manage depressive rumination. This is when our mind gets stuck on a loop of negative thoughts like, I'm a failure, things will never get better, or what's the point? Now, to tackle this, we want to use mindfulness-based tools, and they will help us reduce that rumination and help us get unstuck. First, let's talk about the passengers on the bus metaphor. I personally love this metaphor, and I actually use it for many circumstances in my life. So what I want you to do is imagine that you're the driver of a bus, and your negative self-critical thoughts are the passengers. Now, they're loud and demanding, they're shouting things like, "You're not good enough," or "You should just quit now." They're making a whole bunch of noise. And sometimes they might even try and take over the wheel. But remember, you are the driver. You get to decide where the bus goes. When these thoughts show up, acknowledge them as simply passengers that are along for the ride. Instead of fighting with them or letting them change your directional course, simply, again, notice them, thank them for their input, and refocus on driving towards your destination. The passengers can yell, they don't have to listen to you, they don't get to steer. Your job is to stay focused. Now, how might we do this in real time? When depressive thoughts and rumination kick in, imagine those thoughts as passengers on your bus. Do not force them out. Do not argue with them. Your only job is to keep your hands on the wheel and focus on where you're headed. This metaphor helps create distance from your thoughts. They're not facts, and it helps you to see that you don't have to let them derail your path. Now, you also may want to try the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 mindfulness technique. So when rumination pulls you into the past or the future, it's so important to bring your attention to the present. And this is where the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique comes in. Look around and identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 that you can taste. Maybe it's the taste of coffee in your mouth. This technique anchors you into your current environment, pulling you out of the mental loop and back into your physical surroundings. You may also find it super helpful to create a what's in my control checklist. And this can also help you come to the present moment. Depression will often trick us into believing we're powerless. And so when you catch yourself spiraling, create a checklist with 2 columns. On the left, what can I control? On the right, what I can't control. Write everything that comes to mind. And once you have your list, focus on taking 1 small action in the what I can control column. It could be washing 1 dish, taking 1 shower, calling 1 friend. These small actions can have huge impact on reducing that feeling of hopelessness. Now, another important step is to build a support plan to counteract this spiral. When you're in a depressive spiral, it is invaluable to have a preset support plan. Now, this might include regular check-ins, like scheduling brief check-ins with a supportive friend or a therapist, maybe a loved one. Call them immediately after this episode and ask them if they have the capacity to be on your call list for times when you are really struggling to stay mindful or get out of this spiral. Another crucial way to break the downward spiral of depression is to create a toolbox or tool belt of activities you can do when you're struggling with depressive rumination. Write down a long list of activities that bring you a sense of either relief or joy, even if they feel really hard to start. Now, these don't have to be grand. They could be as simple as make a cup of tea, smell a rose, watch a comedy video on YouTube. Having this list, just putting it up somewhere in your room, can help you to re-engage with activities that line up with your values and do not reinforce depression. You will deeply benefit from this in addition to setting up a daily routine that will help you sort of get a routine, a system going. So it might be 10 minutes of journaling, having a cup of tea in the morning, and then getting outside for 5 minutes a day. Do your best to create a routine and stick with it no matter how depressed you feel. No matter how deep the depression is, try to follow that routine. Now, remember, depression thrives on inactivity and isolation. So to help break you out of these depressive cycles, you need to intentionally create also moments of joy, even if they feel like nothing. And I understand there will be days when doing these joy activities might feel like a complete waste of time, but believe me, they're not. We might even want to start a joy journal. And I love the joy journal. I've actually been practicing this a lot recently. I actually call it the Glimmer Journal, and it has helped me immensely just to see that there is a lot of beauty around us. Maybe you write in a moment where you got some sun on your face, or you cuddled a pet, or you got a smile from a stranger. These moments of satisfaction, again, I call them glimmers. They're not quick fixes into depression, but instead of, going down into this flat activity, they can do a massive job at elevating our mood, even if it's just a tiny bit. Now, before we wrap up, let me address the elephant in the room, or should I say, the depression in the room. Implementing new strategies can be challenging, and it's normal to have doubts or resistance. I wanted to first validate that this work is very, very hard. And there are some very common challenges that my clients have had with these tips and strategies along the way. And I wanted to bring them up so that you didn't feel so alone. So number one is, I'm too tired and too overwhelmed to try these strategies. I get it. When you're feeling exhausted, even small steps can seem impossible. So start by choosing the easiest action on your list, like focusing on a 30-second breathing exercise or just naming one thought. Remember, even the tiniest step is a victory. Number two, these techniques sound simple, but they won't change how I feel. Again, I get it. These strategies are not designed to eliminate depression instantly. Instead, they help create little baby shifts over time. Think of them as planting seeds. Each practice may feel small, but they build up, and gradually over time, they will change your mood and your mindset just little by little. Number three, I've tried similar techniques and they didn't work for me. Now, again, I get it. It's understandable to feel frustrated when your previous attempts have not been successful, but try approaching these strategies with what we call a beginner's mind. Give yourself permission to experiment without expecting immediate results. And do remember, over time is where this really works. It's consistency and small gains rather than aiming for perfection. Number four, acknowledging my thoughts doesn't help because they keep coming back. I get this one as well. I think this is true for anxiety. But we know that thoughts show up repetitively, especially when you're depressed. But the goal is not to make those thoughts disappear. Remember that bus? It's about changing your relationship with them. Each time you practice noticing them, labeling them, and returning back to the present, when we do it with compassion rather than criticism, it will help over time. Now, the last one is that I always feel like mindfulness doesn't work because I'm already over-aware of my discomfort. Now, yes, mindfulness might feel uncomfortable initially because it does bring attention to the present moment, which is where your discomfort exists. But remind yourself, it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling. Don't wrestle it. Allow it to be there. Don't judge it. Notice it and soften around it. Be gentle with yourself and remind yourself you have more strength than depression would have you believe. Be as patient as you can with yourself and just take one step at a time. The last thing I want you to remember is, and I say it every week, it's a beautiful day to do all the hard things. So just take one step at a time, and I hope that you take one amazing piece from this and it changes your day. Have a wonderful day, everybody. I'll see you next week.